Episode 6, When Code Goes Rogue, Viruses, Hacks and Digital Disasters. Not all code is benevolent. In fact, some lines of code have caused chaos on a global scale. Welcome to the wild side. This episode, we explore rogue code, the viruses and worms that spread like wildfire, the hacks that brought mighty organisations to their knees, and software glitches that led to real-world disasters. It's a tour of the digital dark arts, from the very first computer worm that accidentally shut down the early internet, to ransomware that crippled hospitals, to programming errors in safety-critical systems. These cautionary tales remind us that in our software-driven world, a tiny flaw or a tiny foe, often just a few kilobytes in size, can unleash outsized damage. Segment 1. Early malware, mischief and mayhem. The granddaddy of widespread computer worms was the Morris worm of 1988. On November 2nd, 1988, a grad student named Robert Tappan Morris released a self-replicating program onto the ARPANET, the early internet, from MIT's network. It was supposed to be an experiment in seeing how large the internet was, but due to a coding flaw, the worm replicated aggressively, infecting machine after machine multiple times, which clogged their processing. Roughly 10% of the internet's computers were affected, about 6,000 machines at that time, including major university and military systems. The young internet essentially had a 24-hour fever, emails delayed, systems taken offline to purge the worm. The Morris worm didn't have a destructive payload. It wasn't deleting files or stealing data, but the accidental denial of service it caused was significant. It woke everyone up to the reality that connected computers meant a new kind of vandalism was possible. Robert Morris became the first person convicted under the then new Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, though he got off with probation and a fine. Interestingly, Morris later became a respected professor, but the worm he unleashed made it to the history books, and it introduced the term worm from science fiction into our real tech lexicon. From then on, malware, malicious software, evolved rapidly. The late 80s and 90s saw dozens of viruses, programs that infect other programs or files, spreading via floppy disks and later emails. Some were mostly pranks like the Michelangelo virus, set to trigger on Michelangelo's birthday, March 6th, and corrupt hard drives, though it ended up being less widespread than feared, or the Cookie Monster virus, which would halt your PC and demand you type cookie to continue. The existence of an entire virus hobbyist scene led to the rise of antivirus software, an eternal cat and mouse game of pattern matching. Antivirus programs kept a database of signatures, unique byte sequences, of known viruses to detect and remove them. Did you know? The first antivirus patches were often distributed via computer magazines, where you'd have to type in code printed in the magazine to heal your machine. It seems quaint now, but before the internet, that's how fixes spread, via human copy-paste from physical pages. Segment 2, cyber attacks go big, worms, war and WannaCry. In the 2000s, as the world got broadband and always online, malware ceased being just a nuisance. It became a weapon. Email worms like I love you in 2000 demonstrated this. The I love you worm was a simple VB script sent as an email attachment titled love letter. Who could resist clicking that? Once opened, it overwrote files like images, music, with copies of itself, and emailed itself to all contacts. It spread to tens of millions of PCs in days, causing an estimated $5 to $10 billion in damages worldwide due to cleanup costs and lost work. Governments and corporations ground to a halt dealing with it. The Pentagon, CIA, and British Parliament all had to take email servers offline. This was a rude awakening, that connectivity meant vulnerability at scale. Then there was Code Red in 2001, which attacked Windows servers. Slammer, 2003, a tiny 376-byte worm that infected 75,000 servers in 10 minutes. It hit Bank of America ATMs, Continental Airlines flights, ticketing went down. Even emergency 911 systems had hiccups. Slammer's spread was so fast that researchers likened it to the release of a virus in a densely populated city, the digital equivalent of a super spreader event. Only the antibodies were system admins racing to install patches and block ports. Perhaps the most sophisticated and geopolitically significant malware known is Stuxnet, 2010. Stuxnet was essentially a cyber missile aimed at Iran's nuclear program. Discovered in 2010, it was a large and complex worm that targeted Siemens PLCs, programmable logic controllers, used in uranium enrichment centrifuges. Stuxnet was designed to subtly sabotage those centrifuges by altering their speeds while reporting normal operations to monitoring systems. A stealthy James Bond-like operation in code. It ultimately destroyed about 1,000 centrifuges, setting Iran's program back. How lethal can code be? Stuxnet showed that a few lines, well, quite a few, it was very complex, of code can cause physical destruction of industrial equipment. It is widely believed to have been created by the US and Israel, though officially unacknowledged, making it the first known instance of a nation-state using a cyber weapon to induce kinetic effects. This opened the Pandora's box of cyber warfare. After Stuxnet, the world had to reckon that power grids, factories, pipelines, all fair game in cyber conflict. In fact, since then we've seen malware like Black Energy temporarily knock out parts of Ukraine's power grid in 2015, and NotPetya 2017, initially aimed at Ukraine, which spun out globally, causing over $10 billion in damages, hitting Maersk Shipping, FedEx and countless others in what the White House called the most costly cyber attack in history. In 2017, another scourge proved how code can threaten lives indirectly. WannaCry ransomware. WannaCry spread using a leaked NSA exploit called Eternal Blue that took advantage of a flaw in Windows SMB file sharing. It propagated rapidly across networks, encrypting files and demanding ransom payments in Bitcoin. Within a day, WannaCry infected over 230,000 computers in 150 countries. It hit Britain's National Health Service hard. Hospitals had to divert ambulances and postpone surgeries because their systems were locked. This is a case where rogue code literally endangered lives by crippling medical equipment and records. Only a lucky break. A security researcher activating a kill switch domain found in the code stopped its spread. Even so, WannaCry caused an estimated $4 billion in losses worldwide. It was a wake-up call on the importance of updating systems. The vulnerability it used had a patch available a few months prior, but many had not applied it. And how malware had graduated from pranks to organised crime and state-sponsored arsenal. Segment 3. The human factor. Hacks and breaches. Not all rogue code self-replicates. Sometimes it's carefully deployed by hackers to breach specific targets. We've seen dramatic breaches. In 2013, hackers stole data on 3 billion Yahoo accounts, names, emails and passwords. The largest breach ever in terms of accounts affected. In 2017, Equifax had 145 million people's sensitive credit info stolen, apparently due to failing to patch a known web server flaw. The financial and psychological impact of this is huge. Practically everyone's information is out there in some form now, fueling identity theft and fraud. Often attackers exploit the weakest link: humans. Phishing emails that trick employees into running a malicious attachment or giving away credentials remain a primary entry vector. One infamous case. In 2014, Sony Pictures was hacked, allegedly by North Korean actors, in retaliation for a satirical film. They likely got in via phishing. The attackers then unleashed a worm that wiped Sony's computer hard drives, literal digital destruction of corporate assets, and stole loads of confidential emails and films, leaking them online. It was like a corporate burglary and arson, done with bits, not crowbars. The fallout embarrassed executives, private emails made public, and cost Sony an estimated $100 million. Sometimes, just a few lines of code separate safety from disaster. In 2003, a computer bug caused a northeast US blackout affecting 50 million people. How? A race condition in an alarm system at an Ohio power company's control room prevented operators from seeing a line trip, leading to cascading failures. If the software had alerted them correctly, they might have redistributed loads. Instead, the bug kept the alarm silent. This shows even omission by code, failing to alert, can trigger very physical events. In this case, 61,800 megawatts of power knocked out. Another scary example, in 1983 during the Cold War, the Soviet early warning system, powered by software, falsely reported incoming US missiles. A glitch. A Russian officer, Stanislav Petrov, had the gut sense it was a false alarm and did not escalate to nuclear retaliation. Talk about a software bug almost causing World War III. The error was later attributed to a rare alignment of sunlight on high-altitude clouds fooling a satellite, and the software not filtering that out. Segment 4. Resilience and Lessons. If there's a silver lining to these rogue code stories, it's that each disaster spurred improvements. The Morris worm led to the founding of CERT, Computer Emergency Response Team, to coordinate responses to future incidents, essentially the first cybersecurity rapid reaction force. Massive breaches led companies to heavily invest in encryption of data at rest, so stolen files might be useless gibberish. After Stuxnet, industries worldwide audited and fortified their control systems, no more leaving critical centrifuges accessible to Windows worms. WannaCry jolted organisations, especially health and government, to finally upgrade old Windows XP and 7 machines, or at least isolate them. At an individual level, antivirus and automatic OS updates are now the norm. Many attacks still succeed, but far more are thwarted silently. We rarely hear when a major intrusion was prevented, for obvious reasons. And some stories show how a single person's action can save the day, e.g. the British researcher Malware Tech registering that nonsense kill switch domain in WannaCry's code, finding that tiny logic flaw the worm's author left. Or in 2021, when the Colonial Pipeline in the US was ransomwared and fuel supply was threatened, the pipeline company paid the ransom, $4.4 million in Bitcoin. But then the FBI managed to trace and seize most of those Bitcoins back from the hackers, exploiting a weakness in how they moved the funds. That was a win for the good guys, retrieving ill-gotten crypto by essentially hacking the hackers' wallets. We've also learned to build in fail-safes. Airliners, for example, have redundancy in flight control software and sensors so that no single point of failure, be it hardware glitch or software bug, brings a plane down. The tragic Boeing 737 MAX crashes in 2018 to 19 were attributed to flawed MCAS software logic, pushing the nose down based on one faulty sensor input. In response, Boeing rewrote the code to take data from both left and right sensors, and not to repeatedly command down without pilot input. These painful lessons underscore that when code goes rogue in safety-critical systems, the results can be fatal. So rigorous software engineering and testing are literally life-saving. When code goes rogue, it often exposes our blind spots. A virus exploits our lack of vigilance. A hacker exploits an overlooked hole. A software bug exploits an assumption that never anticipated a certain scenario. Each crisis has led to progress, stronger security protocols, better coding standards, and more vigilant monitoring. In a sense, we as a digital society develop antibodies after each infection. But as we become ever more connected, with billions of IoT devices, smart cities, and autonomous cars, the potential attack surface grows too. Will we ever be completely safe from rogue code? Likely not. But awareness is our best defense. Remember, the very connectivity that lets good code change the world also allows bad code to wreak havoc. It's two sides of the same coin. So next time your computer urges a security update, or your IT department drills you on phishing awareness, think of these stories and take it seriously. It's on all of us to keep the system robust. In our next episode, we'll pivot back to the constructive side of coding, the language of coding, from loops and bugs to open source empires. We'll celebrate the craft of programming itself and how the culture of coding evolved from solitary tinkerers to global collaborations. See you then.